You're listening to Convenience Matters, brought to you by NAX.
Welcome to Convenience Matters. My name is Jeff Leonard. I'm with NAX, and here we talk about things that matter to convenience stores, and if they matter to convenience stores, they matter to about half the U.S. population that visits them every day.
And I'm Carolyn Schneer, and thank you for joining us.
And today, Carolyn, there was an article in the New York Times, a great feature article talking about gas stations and the gourmet food there. Loved the title. It was called Gastronomic Stations, short for gastronomic, short for gas. And when we talk about gourmet food at the gas station, you really have to start talking to one person in particular, and that's the Gas Station Gourmet. Al Hebert has joined us today. Welcome, Al.
Jeff, good afternoon. Thanks so much for having me.
So, Al, thanks for joining us today. Gas Station Gourmet. How'd you come up with that idea? It's the website. There is a website called Gas Station Gourmet. You were first to it. Why?
Well, it's a funny story. By trade, I'm a healthcare writer and reporter. I've reported on, health and lifestyle issues for print and broadcast, local broadcast, and left that and started a little company where that was our niche, is healthcare media. And we were shooting a project in Texas, and we stopped at a Chevron station just to get gas. And went inside to get a snack, chips, Coke, something like that. And when we walked in, it smelled like your grandmother's kitchen on a Sunday afternoon. It was amazing. And my videographer looked at me, and I looked at him and said, what is going on in this place? And so I walked towards the back, and there was roast and rice and gravy and green beans. And, I said, hey, we've got to eat this stuff. And we ate it, and it was amazingly good. And I said, if there's one or two more places like this in the country, we might be having a little fun with this gas station food thing. So I said, let's pay attention when we stop. And, as you know, there's more than one or two places like that. And so that's kind of how the Gas Station Gourmet was born. It was very much an accident. And because we're on the road for the other part of our job, I stop in just about every convenience store that I see, which really is tough on my poor wife and children. But, someone's got to do it, Jeff.
You write
that's kind of how it started.
Oh, that sounds great. Now, you write a monthly column for the NAX magazine. And what I love about what you write is you really get to know the families or the operators or the owners of each of these stations. And you dig into their lives and you expose, whether it's their father's store or his antiques in the back of the room or whatnot. That's got to be so amazing to get to know these people all around the country.
Carolyn, it is, because what I found when I first started doing the Gas Station Gourmet, we were a segment on a show called Thrive Television, which was a local broadcast project, and it was pretty much about the food. And then when I started writing for NAX, I love print. Print is, you can do so much more with print. I began to discover their stories, and these people who own these stores, these individually owned convenience stores, these are the great American entrepreneurs. They take the big risk. They do things that I personally don't think I'd have the guts to do. And they try things. They're out there. Many times they've grown up in the stores. I've talked to people whose parents own stores, and they slept in the back of the store. The house was in the back of the store. And so everybody's got a different story. And it really is interesting. And I get really wrapped up in the people sometimes. And the interesting thing is that these people, these stores, often become an integral part of their communities. And I find that fascinating. There's a store in Mississippi. After a hurricane, people run to the convenience store because that's where the community gathers to make sure everybody's okay, to see who needs help. And so you find that all over America in these small stores, often in small towns, sometimes in large towns. But, large towns are a bunch of little tiny neighborhoods, which are kind of like towns. And the stories are amazing. And they're heartwarming, and these people struggle, and they're creative, and they come up with amazing recipes, things that, surprise me. And the attention to detail is one of the things that I find amazing. I consider it one of the trends, although it's probably a no-brainer. It's been around for a long time. But What I'm seeing more and more with these individual owners is they're competing against, often corporate stores. And so they have to set themselves apart. And I'm finding people who are doing things that I probably wouldn't do. I ran to a store up in Wisconsin where they bake their hamburger buns every single day. That's a lot of work. But the customers have come to expect it. And the one time they ran out of hamburger buns, they had to run out and buy buns at the store, and the customers took no time to let them know, hey, there's something different here. This just isn't right. And what's interesting about attention to detail is that it really pays off when it comes to sales and traffic in the store. One of the first stories I did for Nax Magazine, I interviewed a guy named Merle Cormie, third-generation C-store owner. The land where his store sits was cleared in the 1930s by his grandfather with mules and dynamite. And he sells 60 to 100 pounds of chicken salad every single day. That's a lot of chicken salad. It's not all he sells, but somebody in town, I got on the Merle because someone said, well, you don't get married in this town without Cormie's chicken salad. It's not a valid marriage. And so I got to go find this guy. And his attention to detail was, instead of cutting the chicken up, once it's cooked, he and his staff mash it between their index finger and middle finger and the thumb. And he will tell you the reason his chicken salad is so popular is because the way they mash it, and it's the texture. And those are the kind of stories that fascinate me because you know what? I think it works. It works with that market and those customers. Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, you do an incredible job of telling the story, whether it's on the gasstationgourmet.com or at Nax Magazine. But do you have any advice for how retailers can tell their story? Because they probably don't realize that it's a really cool thing. Well, let's take a step back from there. Your first experience was you went to the Chevron station. Now, you just happened to go to the Chevron station, or was there something where somebody said, you got to eat at this place? How can these places brag about themselves in their humble way so that they can stay in business, so they're not just a cult following? They can grow their business.
Jeff, that is the challenge because, but you know what? It's a challenge easily met now. And one of the things I'm finding, another trend, which is I don't think it's used enough, but I'm finding stations that are increasing their volume, telling their story, are using social media very effectively. And that's where the world is right now. We're on Facebook. And I as a matter of fact, for my May story, I interviewed someone who uses Facebook very effectively. And she puts pictures of her food. A lady up in New Hampshire puts pictures. It's a tiny town in New Hampshire, and their business is seasonal because they're not far from a resort area. And so when things are slow, she has a customer of the week, or if it's really slow, a customer of the day, whoever walks in, and that person gets a muffin and free coffee. She takes their picture and puts them on Facebook. What do? They go and they tell, they tell their friend, hey, look, I'm on Facebook. Go take a look. And then they say, oh, that looks good, and people go in the store. So that's one great way to tell the story. A really great story is a lady up in Virginia. One of the first stories I did, she had bought a C-store that was very much in decline, and things were padlocked, and so she got everything up and going. She decided to try her grandmother's recipes, which were excellent. They had great food there. But people weren't coming in. They were going to the pumps, but not coming into the store. So what did she do? She got a platter. She put samples of the food on the platter and went out to the pump, brought the food to them. Next thing you know, in that first 12 months of business, her food business increased 300%. So, if they're not going to come in, if you've got people at your pump, you bring the food to them. And if it's good food, they're going to come in, and they're going to love it, and they're going to come back, and they're going to tell their friends. And that's a really great way to do it. If you have the staff and you have the facilities, one of the things I've learned in this business, if you can cater, if you can get your food from your store out into the community, that brings the community into your store. I've heard more than one owner tell me that, hey, we decided to cater this event. Next thing you know, boom, we've got a ton of business. Also, a great thing to do, if you have the facilities, the staff, and the time, is to couple, say for instance, or with a school, and help them fundraise. This guy had great barbecue, open pit barbecue, which is rather rare, believe it or not. A lot of barbecue with smoke, which is excellent, but he had real open pit barbecue. But he wouldn't get people in the store. So he got in touch with the local high school football team and said, hey, you guys need to raise funds. I'll cook the barbecue. You sell the tickets. You serve it. They cut a deal. People went. They supported the team. They said, hey, where does this barbecue come from? And next thing you know, this guy's doing bang-up business. He had to double the size of his dining room. So those are all things people can do to get their food out there. Let people know about it. Once people find good food, they're going to come. There's no doubt about it. It's just getting them to come in there. And Jeff and Carolyn, one of the things that I've heard, I hear all the time when I'm interviewing people, people tell me, you have to get over the stigma of eating in a gas station. I hear that all the time from people who do great food. I've interviewed people who are classically trained chefs who talk about the stigma, and that's a challenge, because people think I don't want to eat in a gas station. So you really need to get out there sometimes. You need to get your food out there. And often, this is a really good idea to do, if you have a local chamber of commerce and you have the time and you have the facilities, they often host little luncheons, maybe for their board of directors or someone like that. They may not know about your store. And you can call your chamber and say, look, next time you have a luncheon, I'd like to cater the luncheon for you. And you bring them your signature food, your best dessert, things like that. You go to the luncheon, chat with them, and it's a great way to bring those people to your store because you brought your food out to them.
And Al,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. One of the things we've been stressing a lot is how C-store, convenience store, the C in C-store can stand for community store, and you really just hit the nail on the head there with that. And I think you were talking about how getting people in from the gas pump and everything. And we keep saying make sure your outside looks nice and landscaping and clean and restrooms and everything else. It's all part of the package. And I think you said it right there. If people don't want to go towards your store, they're not going to want to eat in your store. So
that's absolutely right.
On that end,
that's right.
What's one of the strangest but most amazing meals you've had at one of these stores?
Well, strange and amazing. I went into this small store. I stop at every convenience store. I'm so lucky to still be married. I was actually on a shoot in Texas, and look, Texas has an amazing variety of stores there. It's really an interesting place. And I go into this small C-store in this tiny little town, and there was a word in Spanish that I couldn't figure out what it was. And I asked the gentleman behind the counter, what is that? He said, it's the most tender part of the cow. And I'm like, okay. And I'm thinking, I probably don't want to try this. He said, here, let me give you a sample. I mean, no, it's okay. And so he gives me a little plastic cup with this meat in it. And it turned out to be the cheek of the cow, which I didn't even know you could eat. And it was very, 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 very tender. It was tender like you can't imagine.
At a gas station.
That was pretty out there, And then tongue is real big in C stores down here, and there's a way to prepare it. And when C stores in Cajun country and those parts of the country where people eat tongue, when they prepare tongue, boom. It's gone. It's out the door. People love tongue, and that's kind of strange. And of course, there's amazing pastries. I love pastries, and I had the most amazing chocolate cake at an Exxon station in Round Rock, Texas. And I think Jeff, you may have been there. High Country Market.
You recommended we go there, and we did, and we are very happy that you recommended. That was a fun day.
Oh, my God, Jeff, I think that cake, I hate to go out on a limb because I haven't had every chocolate cake in every convenience store in America. If that's not the best, it's one of the best. That was the most amazing cake. And again, attention to detail. There's a great example. This guy does a bang-up business. His name is Zahir. And I spent a week in Round Rock working on a medical project, and I would eat there every day. And one day I got the French fries and the hamburger, and I thought, wow, these are very unusual fries. And I approached him and I said, well, there's something different. And he looked at me, and I think immediately I realized it wasn't the fries, it was the ketchup. And when you think of attention to detail, this guy imports herbs from Italy, and he makes his own ketchup. And it costs around $300 to make a big bowl of this ketchup. But it is without a doubt some of the best ketchup you'll find. And does it make a difference? Oh my God, it makes a huge difference, you know. And so those are the kind of the quirky things you find out there. These people with passion for food who really kind of leave nothing to chance. We're gonna have the best ketchup on this plate, you know. And that's what's interesting about it. Those people who pay attention to every single item on a plate.
So I'm going to play off of your talk about beef tongue and whatnot. What about vegetarian, vegan food? You ever go that route? Our producer Blake here was curious.
Well, you know what? I have not found a lot of that. It may just be that I'm not stopping in the right places. I've talked to a few folks who've tried grilled food, and in some markets, grilled just simply doesn't work. I haven't tried vegan. There is a really interesting store in Idaho that has a hydroponic garden in the dining room, and when you order a salad, they will go there and pick it in front of you, and that's pretty cool. But as far as just a place that's maybe straight vegan, I haven't had a chance to experience that yet.
You don't get
but I'm sure there's one out there. I just haven't found it yet.
Yeah, and I think going back to the New York Times article, it was written by a gentleman named Brian Miller. And Brian Miller was the New York Times restaurant critic for 12 years. I'm not sure anybody was a restaurant critic there longer. The lead restaurant critic ate at something like over 5,000 restaurants in his tenure there, largely those Manhattan restaurants, going undercover and writing about the best restaurants in the world. And then he comes out with an article about Gas Station Gourmet at the convenience store. And well, Gas Station Gourmet, of course, is at the convenience store. But it really shows where we've come, where the lead restaurant critic for the New York Times is writing good things about food at the gas station. And that tells us that we have come a long ways.
Jeff, we truly have. There's a lot of exciting things going on at gas stations. And unless you go inside, you're never going to see it. I mean, I love this world. The food aspect is, of course, my main focus. But I went into a store in Arizona and found what may have been Hitler's limousine. And I asked the lady, "This is Hitler's limo?" And she said, "Well, we can't say it's not." And, I mean, they have this really interesting museum of oddities. During the summer, they'll get 100, 200 people go in every day, pay $1 to see this, drive traffic through the store. I went to a place that has great food, great seafood, and you walk into the other side of the store, and they sell furniture. You can get a Bassett living room set and an amazing shrimp gumbo in this all in the same store. So there's so many cool things going on inside of America's gas stations. A lot of great food, but a lot of great, commerce besides food going on in there, and it's really amazing. And when you talk about being the hub of a community, sometimes that may be that your gas station sells furniture. It might be that your gas station has amazing food and sells nails by the pound, which amazed me. That you can go in there and buy a half a pound of nails in some of these places, and hog rings. I'd never heard of a hog ring before. but I did a story for Nax Magazine on this little store, and they have really terrific food. They bake all their bread, and they also sell, plumbing supplies and hog rings. And hog rings are things that you put in the nostrils of a hog to lead them around so they listen to you. I didn't want to tell my wife about that. That just scared me to death. But there's some really, really interesting places out there.
Do they sell bacon too?
There's a really interesting place in Nebraska. This guy loves convenience stores, and so he has a car dealership. So he built a small convenience store inside his dealership, and it's been great for the dealership business. You can go in there and buy convenience store items, and then eventually he built a convenience store, in the same town, not far away, a freestanding store. So it's a fascinating world, and I'm always surprised that that more people don't take that short walk from the pumps to the door. But there's, you have to work on the public, and we always hope that what we do here at the Gas Station Gourmet encourages people to walk in there. There are great places that have classically trained chefs. I walked into a blue Chevron station in a little tiny town in Texas that had 700 people in it. And they had Cornish game hen in this place on the buffet. They had amazing desserts that were made from fresh fruit that the chef got at the farmer's market that morning. And he was a classically trained chef. His parents owned the gas station. But he decided to move back to this little tiny town in Texas and cook for his parents. And so consequently, they had amazing meals inside of a gas station. And, if you don't take that tiny walk, you're going to miss out on a lot of great food, but also some pretty interesting items besides, food. Who knows what you'll find in them. And I just hope that we're able to tell these stories. And my goal is always that when I tell this story about a place, say in Jennings, Louisiana, that maybe someone will read this in South Dakota and go, I could do that here. I could take this idea and implement it in my store, and maybe it'll work. And I'm always hope that someone will try some of the things that I write about in the stories, because they're often really, really good strategies that people can employ, and the strategies are either free or very cost-effective to implement, and they can, certainly increase their traffic in the store, increase their profits, things like that. So I always hope that every story gives someone an idea that they can implement in their store.
And I think you just cut to the crux of what our industry is about. It's about sharing ideas, about making each other better. And there was just a quick example. I saw some store when they had an opening, a new store opening. Instead of cutting a ribbon, they cut a giant sandwich, hoagie, whatever you'd like to call it. But they also had it made by the local high school football team. So you tied in all the elements of what you've said thus far. It's getting the community involved, tying it to food. It wasn't a gas station. It was a food station that happened to sell gas. And I think that's the beauty of what you're doing every month in Nax Magazine and what you put together in Gas Station Gourmet. And I think we can tell a lot of stories together. I think that we have an opportunity here. It's the surprise element, because you can get a great meal at a steakhouse, but when you get it at the gas station or someplace unexpected, it tastes that much better.
It does. And what I find fascinating and almost compelling when I go into these places is the pride and the passion these people have for the food. And when I go to a gas station and try the food, I just go in and just get food, And I was in this little place, and they had rice dressing, and I don't know if rice dressing is kind of a southern thing. It's ground meat and vegetables cooked down, and then you put rice in it, and it's got ground beef and rice. It's a very southern thing, and I love it. And I asked the lady behind the counter. She was turning as I asked this question. She was turning to walk away. I said, "Hey, do you make your own rice dressing here?" Man, she spun around and she said, and I'll take that recipe to the grave with me. And I knew this was going to be a great experience because that recipe meant a lot to her. And I knew she had passion because I assumed she thought I was going to ask for the recipe. And it turned out to be an amazing experience.
Well,
and, so those are the things that I love. And, I don't think that, when people pull up to a convenience store in Gassup, that they expect there to be that kind of passion, that kind of, kind of an emotional investment in the food. The people have that, and that's what makes this food so great.
Al, you obviously have a lot of passion yourself about this business. Tell our listeners how they can learn more about what you do with Gas Station Gourmet.
Well, the best thing to do is subscribe to NACS Magazine. Join NACS. It's a great way to find out what's going on in the business. And each month I'm in NACS Magazine with the Gas Station Gourmet. Our website is gasstationgourmet.com. That's gasstationgourmet.com. We try to keep up with that every month with little tips, things like that. But on Facebook, we are at Gas Station Gourmet on Facebook, and the Facebook page is updated very regularly whenever we find interesting things going on in the convenience store industry. We put them right on Facebook. Again, sometimes there's great tips. There's news on there. So, like us on Facebook, follow us on Facebook, and we hope we can help you. And, Jeff, let me just say this. Feel free to email me at gs.gourmet@yahoo.com. That's gs.gourmet@yahoo.com. My phone number's there, and anybody who has questions, if they're wondering, gee, will this work in my store, they're always welcome to call me. I'm always happy to chat on the phone with folks.
And thank you, Al, for joining us today. It's been a great time. Thank you, Jeff.
You've been listening to Convenience Matters, brought to you by NACS. For more information, go to nacsonline.com.